everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are starting a brand new show today, The Great Pretender. So if you checked my channel a few weeks back, you'll see that I had my dog, Huckleberry, choose the next show I was going to watch on this channel as per Patreon request, and the show that he ended up picking was The Great Pretender. There's a video about it on my channel if you want to know how in the world a dog picks a show for a channel. But I'm honestly really excited to see this show because I've wanted to watch it for literally years. Ever since I started this channel, this coming year is going to be my third year with this channel. And ever since starting it way back in 2020, I was wanting to watch The Great Pretender around the time it came out. And I was like, no, I'm going to put it on a poll and see if it wins and I'll watch it for my channel. And it got up to second place on one of the polls. And then it just has kind of just sat there without being chosen. And so I'm really glad I'm actually getting to watch it because I'm very curious about it. All I know about this series is that it involves some form of crime and maybe a con artist. That's all I know. But I love like crime thriller anime. I'm like all about it. Anything that involves like a detective work or crime or something that's like intricate, like match of wits. Like you got Death Note. I'm watching Monster right now. I've seen other series like Banana Fish, you know, kind of that just that gritty mobster crime stuff. I'm all about it. And so if you're new to my channel, I'm Romania Black. I'm an English teacher and I watch anime and read manga and donghua for fun and then talk to you all about it in the comments. My only request is that please do not spoil me. So please don't talk about any spoilers, hints, or clues in the comment section unless you spoiler tag it so I don't accidentally read it because I like to read all the comments and talk to you all about the show as we go episode to episode. So just, if you can, don't give me any hints or clues, especially with a show like this that might have some mystery involved with it. So I debated whether to watch the English dub or the Japanese sub, but I chose the Japanese sub for the sole reason that Junichi Suwabe is apparently in this. And I was like, oh, Almine's in this? You mean Almine? You mean Jeha? His voice actor's in this? Oh, well, I have to hear that voice because he has one of those voices that you just have to hear for yourself. Your ears need to experience the lusciousness of his voice. That's where we're at. So I am watching the original Japanese with subs. You can see in the link down below. I'll have the reaction and then I always come back here and we talk about the episode. And we just talk for however long we talk. I'm a very long-winded person. I'm used to long lectures as a teacher. So, and who knows, with a series like this, we might have to bring out some companions like Whiteboard Coon. We'll have to just wait and see. But I know virtually nothing about this show, and that's what I love best. I love going into these shows as blind as I can be, knowing nothing, so that I can be surprised and you all can be entertained. So, and then we can talk about it, so that'll be fun. But yeah, so I'm really excited, and I just couldn't wait to start this series. As soon as it was picked, I was like, I want to dive right in, right? So that's where we're at. But we're going to start Great Pretender episode 1 and just see what this show is about. Like, you got a pilot episode, how you gonna sell it to me, huh? All right, so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start episode 1 of The Great Pretender, and we're gonna do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do this. What a treat. When I was watching this, I was like, why does this look like the style of it was seeming like a mixture of Avatar The Last Airbender with the eyes right at the beginning with Edamura and then kind of like Fooly Cooly. And I was like, why does this seem familiar? And then when the credits started playing, I saw Yoshiyuki Sadamoto and I was like, wait a minute. He does the Neon Genesis Evangelion manga. He's the character designer for this. I went and looked it up just like, I looked up Yoshiyuki Sadamoto and The Great Pretender. He's the character designer for this whole show. A successor to Neon Genesis indeed. I'm like, look at this. The guy that helped Anno with Neon Genesis is now the character designer for The Great Pretender, which is an anime-only original. I'm happy for it. All right. There's a lot of good, like, pop culture jokes and good references right off the bat in this. This is going to be fun. I'm excited about this based on our cast of characters. And what I like about it is that this episode does not originally, it lets you by the end of it go, oh, this is how the con is. So the girl Abby, she was in on it from the start. I was like, This was all just a big con to get Edamura involved. Interesting. Interesting indeed. All right. So, of course, we start out with Ed, old Edamura, hanging from the Hollywood sign. Waking up after being knocked out by Abby and hanging from the sign. And then be like, it's like the record scratches, and he's like, how did I get in this situation? He's like, hi, you may be wondering how I got into this situation. You even see that tacky tie, too. And he starts screaming for Laurent and Abby as he's hanging there in the Hollywood sign. Amazing. Amazing. So yeah, so we go back to Izakaya Chicken, which is the thing there. And just everything about this episode now, I feel like going back through it a second time is going to be fun, because now the con, by the end of the episode, all comes full circle and will make sense. So Edamura and his partner originally were set up to like do a con where they would go to people's houses, and they're like, the water contamination, they're like, do you know that it's a growing problem due to the weather irregularities? I'll be honest, at first when the guy sat down, the partner, and was talking to the woman about installing the filter, she seems kind of like, I don't know, a water filter, I don't know if I really want one. He's like, oh, we can give it to you at a reduced cost. And she's like, And at first when he smiles, I thought that maybe it might have been Edamura in a disguise, like with a mask on or something. But then I'm like, no, it seems too real. It doesn't seem like a mask. And the woman's like, no. And she shoos him away, right? She shoos him away, but then gets this guy to come in and says, I realized right away what this flyer mentioned for about imposters. And so, because he's wearing like he's wearing the same suit that the guy was wearing, because it's to sell the con, to make him look like the imposter and to make Edamura look like he's the real deal. But she was in on it the whole time. It was to get him set up. And then, because he tests the water levels and everything. And then she has one of the watches, though, right? I want to go back through. Yeah, she has the same watch that he had and that Laurent had as well. It's a little pricey. But she ends up getting, yeah. And of course, Edamura is like the young, handsome guy that's able to like swindle her over, because he just puts on the charm, and he does the very passive aggressive, like, well, you know, you probably don't need this. It's really expensive, but you know, it's just, and the way he plays it, he's like, well, it's within state regulations, so you're fine. She's like, well, within state regulations, well, what about my friend and her kid? And he's like, it's all right. But yeah, he's like, you can't put a price tag on your health. And then he cons her that way. And then we go back to like the grandma being suspicious as he's talking to the guy. And they have like the little shop there. And the two of them working together. He's like, Edamura, you're a genius. He's like, well, yes, I guess I am. And so he says he's the best con man in Japan. He's like, it's Toyotomi Hideyoshi, which made me think I'm watching Kuroko's Basketball at the same time, so I instantly thought of the character Hyuga, because he likes all the old samurai. He's like, it's a sign I'll take over the country. And then we have our OP, which I love the OP a lot. It reminds me a lot of Cowboy Bebop. Has that same kind of jazzy feel to it, and it doesn't really give anything away. Although it does show, it looks like he's chasing after Abby and Laurent. Interesting. Very curious to see what we get out of this series. So yeah, so they're just sitting out, hanging out, and they're like gonna try to con a tourist. They have the shop set up, and they're gonna con old Laurent. But we know from all of this that Laurent set Edamura up the entire time. Because with the watches and everything. And he's like, oh, you dropped this. And then picked his wallet up. Yes, so the watches and everything. Edamura was set up from the very beginning. Laurent like got him involved, and he didn't even realize it. And then he sees the money and everything. So yeah, you can't con a con man. And now that I look at it, it's really Sadamoto's designs. This is so cool, because as much as I love Neon Genesis and I love the animation and everything for it, this looks like a Sadamoto manga. It's so cool. And it's so nice to know that Sadamoto did something after Neon Genesis. It's like, it's so great to see that he was actually doing things. I love it. But something that's really, really cool about this series is that they handle the whole English and everything because Laurent is, of course he's French. For some reason, I've said this in another series, for some reason, there is this obsession with if there is a blonde guy that is not Japanese in an anime, he is at least part French. Every time. It doesn't matter what it is, he's at least part French. And so Laurent is a French man, a French con artist. And so it is Junichi Suwabe playing his voice actor, which his English is surprisingly pretty good. But he like chuckled a few times and I was like, yes, it's him. I don't know who is, I want to look up real quick who the voice actor for Edamura is. Edamura, Japanese voice actor. I want to know who he is because his voice sound is super familiar. Chiaki Kobayashi. Who else does he play? That name sounds familiar. What has he been in? He just now started voice acting. Wow, he's not been in a lot. Oh wow, at all. He's been in like Grand Blue Fantasy, Fire Emblems. What in the world? He's not been in a lot of things at all. Those are video games. Okay, here we go. I was like looking at anime. He just started in 2017. Interesting. So he's not been in a lot of stuff at all. But it looks like he was a delivery man in Fruits Basket in 2019. Oh, he's young Askeladd from Vinland Saga. Oh, okay. I was like, that voice sounds familiar, but I couldn't place it. I was like, what is he doing? And okay, so that's it. And he's Longa in Skate the Infinity. Oh, okay. So Edamura's voice actor is What a departure! Longa in Skate the Infinity and Edamura could not be any more different. They are so different. Wow, okay. So Longa's voice actor is playing Edamura, and then and then Almine and Jeha's voice actor is playing Laurent. Fun times. But yeah, so that I like that. Awesome. Great. Also didn't realize that the same voice actor was Askeladd. I think that might have been mentioned in Vinland Saga. But yeah, so it all set him up. So the older man was in on the con as well. But yeah, I like the fact, and then yeah, of course, there is this little there's a sexy vibe with Laurent where Laurent's not afraid to be handsy. He ain't afraid to get his hands all over Edamura. Now the one was a con. He was conning to take his money. But then with the suit and the tie and everything, he's very handsy with Edamura, and Edamura's like a cat. Get off me. But I like it so far. But what I really like that this series does is it sets up the whole, how do we get across, the language barrier? Because we're trying to make this realistic. It's a Japanese sub. With the English dub, it's not going to be an issue, right? Because with that, it's not going to be an issue. But here it's okay, well, he's from France. And they actually go all out with it. They have them, for a long time, I was like, are they going to speak English the whole series? I was debating it when they were in the car talking back and forth. I was like, should I have watched the English dub if they're going to speak English this whole time? But then I like that they get around it because they're like, no. They're like, we're just gonna suspend the illusion of reality and bring it all back to Japanese so you all don't have to suffer through this. Because Laurent makes fun of Edamura's accent, being like, do you really have a Japanese accent? That doesn't sound right. And he's like, yeah, but no. Junichi's English is surprisingly pretty good. I liked it. I thought that was nice. But yes, they're doing all these little toy soldiers, they're gonna do a con with them, right? And he's like, you're the #1 swindler in Japan, which is why I think that he got hooked up with Laurent, because Laurent's like, I need someone to help me, and I need the biggest con man in Japan. And this guy was like, well, I've got your man. Because then at this point, Edamura, he's like, where'd you get the watch from? He's like, what's with the watch? It's nice. It's Kudo, that's his name. And he says, things have been going well since I teamed up with you. And he's like, well, don't get a big head living so stylishly. Yeah, so we set up that Edamura has he's got a pretty big ego, thinking he's the best con man in Japan. He's not met Reigen Arataka yet. It's fine. But he's very, very sure of himself, and he just gets smuggled in and just, right in the midst of things. And I love that they basically set them up by the cops to be found out. And I just love the ins and outs. The artwork in the series, it is just so vibrant and saturated. And I love like the way that the shadows work over everything. It looks kind of like futuristic in a weird way, but like it's so beautiful. Like I could sit here and just stare at the backgrounds. I was getting a little lost in the reaction. I was so caught up in the visuals. I was like, this is a beautiful series already in the first episode alone. And then he gets in the car with Laurent. And he's like, oh, thanks for the wallet. Thanks for the Louis Vuitton. And he's like, oh, you're... And he's like, well, I'm a con artist, obviously. And then he's like, he's a swindler like me. And so then he says that they're on their way to LAX and he's going to go with them. And I like that Edamura's like, well, the cops are after me in Japan. I might need to go lie low for a while. So it might not be a bad idea for me to go to LA with this guy. And he's like, he just seems like a swindler, but he doesn't seem like that big of a deal. So I'll just follow him. Famous last words. I love too that he just literally planted like a butcher knife and all this stuff on this guy so that he would get kicked off the plane. What the hell? Like, it's establishing a lot with Edamura's character that he was not afraid. Like, he looks like AG off Banana Fish. He looks boyish and like he's innocent, but no, Edamura just like framed a guy with a knife at an airport so he could take his plane spot. Like, Edamura is not a morally innocent character at all. He's the biggest con man in Japan. And Laurent is a very smooth operator. And I'm like, oh, honey, do you know who you're dealing with? I don't think we know. But yeah. And then I just like that Laurent, as the guy's getting taken away, Laurent's just like, you had to resort to that to get a plane ticket? You couldn't think of any other means? It's great. I'm going to be very curious to see how this series portrays America, because I've never been to Los Angeles at all. I have a friend that lives in Los Angeles, but I have never been. But all I know about LA, and this is the most stereotypical thing, all I know about LA other than Hollywood is that they have an In-N-Out burger. So the moment we see the LAX sign for the airport, the moment we see the In-N-Out burger logo, I'm like, just like Japan, all I know about Los Angeles other than Hollywood is there's In-N-Out. Which apparently is a big famous burger chain. We don't have it in the Midwest where I am from, so I just assume if I go to LA, I have to go eat an In-N-Out. It seems like it's expected, right? That's so funny. But yeah, they get into this nice fancy car, and Edamura invited himself. He was like, I'm going with you. So it's curious. It's like Edamura kind of inadvertently gets himself involved in all of this because he chose to go off with Laurent. And at the time, I think Edamura believes that he's going to like swindle the swindler, but doesn't realize how deep and in over his head he's about to get, right? And Laurent's like, okay, I'll take you with me. He's like, you can just chill out with me, I guess. And I love that they portray the LA traffic like it's just grid traffic, non-moving. It's great. It's very realistic. And I love Junichi saying, oh my God. I'm going to go back and listen to that when this episode review is over. I'm going to go back and listen and be like, oh my God, like this traffic's murder. But it's so clever that they talk about the accents and everything, and they finally just get to the point where they're like, screw it. We're not going to speak in English anymore. And what do they say there? What do they say? They make the comment. They're like, everything from this point will be translated to English. They're like, we're not even going to bother with the accents anymore because it's just too much. So just suspend your disbelief just for a little bit. And then they find out about this producer, Eddie Casano, that is the one that Laurent is going to try to swindle. And so they make this bet. I want to go back to the bet that they make. So he's like, he was released on bail for $1 million. He's part of the Hollywood mafia, right? And so he's doing all these movie projects. I love the Leonardo DiCaprio reference. That was great. It was a nice little breaking the fourth wall. So what they end up deciding to do is that Edamura's like, what movie was he famous for? And he's like, the Razzie series, which is hilarious because if you know anything about American films, the Razzies are an actual awards. They're the polar opposite of the Academy Awards, where you get a Razzie for like the worst film imaginable. So it's kind of funny that he has a series called the Razzie series. It's curious. He's like, I don't know it. He says, finally. He's like, I'm going to do some work. And he's like, who are you swindling? He's like, I have an acquaintance look at a haul I got from Japan. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, all right, how about this? I'll sell it at a higher price than you. And if it goes well, 300,000 yen, and you'll become my henchman. I want to make note, the whole time that Edamura is making this deal with Laurent about, oh, I can sell the stuff you're trying to sell for a higher price, Laurent is like fondling that shifter, like very sexily. And I'm like, oof. Oof. He's just like getting kind of turned on by the idea that you're going to try to outswindle him when he knows that he's going to win. It's like, mm-hmm. And so he's like doubling down. Interesting. He's like, if I win, you'll be my assistant. Okay. He's like, let's get you suited up first. They just go straight to Mosey's instead of Macy's. It's amazing. But yeah, so he knew exactly what he was getting into with Edamura, and Edamura did not have a clue, did not know how this was going to go down. And he's like, well, you look more like a geek than an intellectual with the glasses. Meanwhile, Laurent looks like freaking sex on a stick, which is why Junichi agreed to play the voice for him. That's what he does. He plays really sexy characters. As soon as I saw his voice in this, I was like, oh, I'm sure he'll be a main character and be really good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I like Edamura's like, well, you just look different than me. Your suit's completely different. He's like, oh, you look pretty good, though. He's like, he'll have the same watch as me. And a tie pin would be good. And he gives him the pin, which is the tracker. He's like, this looks smarter than a pocket square. He wants him to look like a doctor. And I love that Edamura's like blushing, like, get your hands off me, but I'm not going to make you get your hands off me. I see like a little subtle subtext there. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. But yeah. So then he signs Laurent. Mm-hmm. And that's all that we get so far. He's like, well, I'm Makoto Edamura. And of course, since at this point they're still speaking in English to one another, he confuses it and thinks he's saying edamame. And he's like, no. He's like, Edamura. I love it. The height difference, everything. I'm here for it. And so they go to the guy's house and he introduces Edamura as a doctor, and they see that it's the same film director who's with the Hollywood Mafia. And he's like, I'm selling him the tin of candies that I showed you earlier. Mm-hmm. But the thing of it is, it was all a con, so they weren't actually drugs. And so the thing is, Laurent has set this whole thing up from the start. He came in there with this long con, right? So he's been putting this into motion for a while now because Abby's working with him. So it makes even more sense now where he's like, oh, Abby's my new girl that works for me. She sucks at acting and she isn't very good at it because she's not good at acting to begin with. That's not her thing. She's like a bodyguard because when he gives her the drug and everything, when she gets all crazy and acts all wild with it, she's actually like a trained martial artist, I'm pretty sure, and was just acting like the drug was having this big effect on her to sell it. But it wasn't really affecting her. And then he gives Edamura the drug to get him to run away and make it look like it was because of the drug and not his actual conviction. Mm-hmm. And they make the comment about Hollywood deteriorating and say, Abby, go get champagne. Maybe she'll walk the red carpet one day. Her acting's awful, and she can't speak English. Mm. And Edamura, of course, is just like blushy with her. Mm-hmm. And that's why Laurent's like, she's coming with me. So yeah, interesting. And then he says, I'll pass. I like that Laurent's not drinking the booze. That should have been like a red flag. Mm-hmm. And then he gets her to take the drug, of course. And then there we go. The latest synthetic drug created by Japan, a leading country in pharmaceutics, called Sakura Magic. And I'll sell it exclusively to you. Mm-hmm. So she put on just as much of a show. Interesting. And so then Edamura's like, wait a minute. We're talking about selling drugs, and we're talking about compensating me, and if we're being $5 million in US dollars, he's like, this is not the bargain that we agreed on to get the assistant and henchman, scenario set up with. He's like, that's not what we agreed on. This is going outside of what our original terms were. And he's like, I want it in cash. And he's like, well, you could sell this drug and all these celebrities would buy it off of you. And he's like, this young expert from the Chemical Research Institute of Japan, the one and only Dr. Edamura. And he's like, aha! He's like, well, might as well. Is there anybody else that wants to try? And so he does the whole thing telling him to open his mouth, but we know at this point that it's not actual drug, right? And that's when he compares the watches and realizes that the same watch, the Alpha watch that he has, is the one that Kudo had and the one that the lady had. He's been involved in this major heist. And that's why he's like, decides to take the drug and get out of there. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. And he doesn't really show any superhuman strength, but he has a gun, so there's that. And then he takes the gun from the guy and fires it so he can escape. Uh-huh. And Lauren's like, well, that was fun. That was cool. And he used the pin on him to track him. Mm-hmm. But he manages, as the doctor runs away, that gives the director enough cause to be like, well, I guess I'll buy it. And he's like, well, then I'll go convince the doctor and bring him back. Ah! Okay. All right. And then they go in the alleyway to find him. And he realizes the pin, or the tie clip was a tracker. Not the pin, it was a tie clip. And he's like, what the hell are you? Were you trying to make me a drug smuggler? And I like that Lawrence, like, I'm not going to say back. And Edamura tries to, like, pass off that he's a black belt in karate. He, like, does the moves and everything. It's ridiculous. And then Abby's like, yeah, no. Yeah, he, like, trips. And then Abby's like, she does the crane stance. And she's already changed her clothes and everything. Yep, and just kicks the snot out of him. Uh-huh, and Laurent catches the glasses. Yeah, he's like, what was that? And she goes, the crane stance. And knocks him out. And then we see the two people that were at the airport. The back streets are so dirty, I'm glad we came. Ah! So I don't know if they were involved in the con or not. It would be hilarious if they'd been involved as well, but they finally made it to LA, at least, right? And so meanwhile, they're like, all these people are gathered saying, did you have fun playing detective? And he's like, I have plenty of money. So, oh my God, they were all involved. Like the people at the airport that he supposedly conned were involved. And then the one guy, Kudo, with the police, they were involved in getting Edamura to follow Laurent because he has all the money now. And the lady, she left the house. It was all a giant elaborate con by Laurent. Oh my gosh. Okay. And then he's like, put me down. He's like, you'll pay for this. And he's like, what'd you say? Who the hell are you two? We're con artists. And then that's the episode. So yeah, oh, our poor Edamura, the greatest con man in Japan, just got conned by Abby and Laurent. And now he's hanging upside down from the Hollywood sign. I have a feeling Laurent's going to want to keep using him, though, because he's too much fun, right? Oh, my gosh. And now he's his assistant because he lost the bet. Ah! I love it. I love that the ED ties into the theme and the title of the episode, and it's The Great Pretender by Freddie Mercury. So that's cool. But yeah, that was neat. I really liked that the whole thing. It felt like a crime caper where at the very end in the last 5 minutes it all comes together and you're like, oh, this was one giant elaborate con from the start. And Edamura was basically conned by Laurent. Laurent hired all these people to be involved, and he was conned into getting him to come to the US with him for whatever reason. I'm curious now. Now I want to see what's actually going to happen. I'm really curious to see what is going to go down with Laurent and Abby and Ed. I want to call him Edamura, but then another part of me wants to call him Ed, so. But I'm so excited. I was a little bit like, well, something's going to replace Neon Genesis. And I do like the series that replace one another to have like a little bit of like a spiritual succession, right? And now I feel like this series can in some way be a successor to Neon Genesis because it has Sadamoto as the character designer. Right, and that connects back to the manga, so that's fun. That's exciting, and I love Sadamoto's artwork, so I have a feeling that I'm going to love it in this series, so, So I'm on board with these goons and their capers and handling these like con artist scams. I'm on board with it. I'm excited about it. It's gorgeously animated. The soundtrack was great. It was funny. And I like Lauren and Ed's characters already. And Abby's growing on me. Now that I know Abby's she's not just there for looks. She actually may be the muscle behind the entire ordeal. She may be like the muscle bodyguard. I'm on board with that. I feel much better about that. So, okay. All right. I'm excited. It has a Cowboy Bebop feel to it in a way, and I like that. So, we'll see. But I'm curious to know what you all thought down below. I thought this was a good opening episode. I'm excited to see where it goes, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts as well. So, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with episode 2 of The Great Pretender. Bye.